What if the most powerful health tool available to people over 60 costs nothing, requires no gym, has no side effects, and most people are still ignoring it? Here's the thing. The research on what a consistent daily walk does to your body after 60 isn't just good. It's extraordinary. And we're not talking about burning a few calories. We're talking about your heart, your kidneys, your liver, your joints, your brain, your muscles, and how long you actually live. In this video, we're going through 9 things that happen inside your body when you walk every single day. Some of this the medical community has known for decades. Some of it will genuinely surprise you. And at the end, we'll give you a practical framework to actually implement this. Because knowing something is good for you doesn't mean you'll do it. Stay until the end. Number 5 is the one that surprises people most, and it's probably the last thing you'd expect. After 60, the body starts operating with less margin for error. Blood pressure climbs. Insulin sensitivity drops. Muscle mass decreases. Chronic inflammation builds up silently. And most of these changes happen without visible symptoms, until something goes seriously wrong. Here's what the medical community has known for years, and what doesn't get communicated clearly enough. Regular physical movement, especially walking, interferes directly with all of these processes at the same time, not as a treatment. As protection. The Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest-running health studies ever conducted, documented that people who stay physically active show significantly lower rates of heart disease, dementia, and all-cause mortality over time. And what shows up consistently in the data is this. You don't need to run, lift heavy, or push yourself to your limits. Walking, done consistently, already produces measurable results. If you're over 60 and you're not walking every day, pay attention to this one. So let's get into the data. 9 things that change in your body when you walk every day after 60. Starting with number 1. Walking regularly improves what doctors call endothelial function, the health of the inner lining of your blood vessels. And here's why that matters. Better endothelial function means more flexible arteries, a healthier lipid profile, and lower systemic inflammation. These are independent cardiovascular risk factors, and walking addresses all of them at once. The Nurses' Health Study, conducted by Harvard researchers, following over 72,000 women across 8 years, found that those who walked briskly for at least 3 hours per week had a 35% lower risk of heart attack compared to sedentary women. 35% from walking. Sound familiar? Think about someone like Carol, 63 years old, hadn't exercised in years, started walking 30 minutes a day after a routine checkup flagged her blood pressure. 6 months later, her numbers had shifted without any change in medication. Doctors see this constantly. The heart becomes more efficient. Each beat pumps more blood. And the vessels stay more flexible, which is what protects you from cardiac events over time. Hypertension is one of the most common conditions in emergency medicine, and one of the most silent. It damages blood vessels quietly, over years, and is a leading cause of stroke and kidney disease. Research published in the Journal of Hypertension looked at walking interventions across different groups, and found average reductions of 3 to 4 millimeters kmh systolic blood pressure from regular walking programs. That might not sound like much, but at the population level, a 3-point reduction in average systolic pressure is associated with drastically lower rates of stroke and heart attack. For people with stage 1 hypertension, below 140 systolic, that kind of lifestyle-only reduction can sometimes be enough to delay or avoid medication altogether. Primary care doctors see it happen. And honestly, that's not a small thing. With every step you take, the muscles in your legs pull glucose from your bloodstream through a pathway that's partially independent of insulin. The muscle contraction itself pushes glucose into the cells, no insulin signal required for that to work. That has one very clear practical implication. Walking after meals is one of the most effective ways to blunt the post-meal blood sugar spike. A study published in Diabetes Care found that 3 15-minute walks after meals reduced 24-hour glucose levels more effectively than a single 45-minute walk done at another point in the day. Timing matters. For people with insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, or type 2 diabetes, and research suggests that's a significant portion of adults over 60, this isn't a small finding. It's a zero-cost, zero-side-effect tool that medicine has been recommending for years. Chronically elevated glucose damages blood vessels, nerves, and kidneys over time. Walking interferes with that process directly. A large study following over 6,000 people with chronic kidney disease found that those who walked regularly had a significantly lower risk of progressing to kidney failure, even after controlling for other key variables like age, blood pressure, and blood sugar. The mechanisms are multiple. Walking lowers blood pressure, which directly reduces the filtration pressure inside the glomeruli, the microscopic filtering units inside the kidney. Less pressure means less accumulated damage over time. On top of that, improved insulin sensitivity and reduced systemic inflammation, both produced by regular walking, are independent factors that slow kidney disease progression. The benefits here are largely indirect. They come through improvements in blood pressure, blood sugar, and inflammation. But they're absolutely real, and they've been tested repeatedly in the American medical literature. This is the one that surprises most people. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease affects between 25% and 30% of American adults, according to NIH data. Most people who have it don't know. It develops without symptoms, with fat gradually accumulating in liver cells over years, potentially progressing to inflammation, scarring, and in advanced cases, cirrhosis. And here's what most people miss. One of the most effective interventions for fatty liver disease, backed by years of research, is regular aerobic exercise, including plain, boring walking. A systematic review published in the Journal of Hepatology found that exercise interventions, including moderate-intensity walks, significantly reduced the amount of fat in the liver, even without significant weight loss. That last part is the key. The benefits aren't just about losing weight. The movement itself has a direct metabolic effect on how the liver processes fat. Walking increases the rate at which the liver oxidizes fatty acids. It reduces the release of free fatty acids from fat tissue into the liver, and it improves insulin sensitivity, which reduces the fat-producing signaling that drives accumulation in the first place. Most people watch their heart, their kidneys, their brain. Nobody talks about the liver. But the liver sits at the center of nearly every metabolic process in the body, and walking protects it directly. Pay attention to this one. Most people assume walking wears down the joints, especially the knees, especially with arthritis. The evidence says almost the opposite. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Cartilage doesn't have its own blood supply. The nutrients it gets come from the synovial fluid inside the joint, and that fluid only circulates when the joint moves. When joints stop moving regularly, they become less nourished, stiffer, and more likely to deteriorate over time. The Osteoarthritis Initiative, a long-term study funded by the NIH, following thousands of people with or at risk of knee arthritis, found that people who walked regularly felt less pain and showed less functional decline over time compared to those who didn't. Walking also strengthens the muscles around your joints, your quadriceps, your glutes, your hips. And here's the part that matters most. Stronger muscles around a joint absorb part of the load that would otherwise go straight through the joint itself. They act as natural shock absorbers. The stronger they are, the more protection they provide. Does this sound like you? If you've been avoiding walking because of joint pain, this is worth bringing up with your doctor. After 60, the body loses muscle mass naturally. This process is called sarcopenia, and it's one of the main reasons people become frail, lose balance, and eventually lose their independence as they get older. Let me be real with you. Walking isn't the same as lifting weights. If you want to build muscle mass, you need to do more than walk. But for maintaining the muscle you have, preserving coordination, and slowing age-related decline, regular walking makes a measurable difference. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that people who walked more per day maintained significantly greater lean muscle mass over a 4-year period compared to sedentary individuals. Part of that is metabolic. Walking improves insulin sensitivity, which supports muscle maintenance. But the other piece is this. Keeping your legs moving throughout the day preserves the neuromuscular connection, and that connection, between your brain and your muscles, is critical for balance and fall prevention as you age. Mike, 68, thought he was just getting older when he started feeling unsteady on his feet. His doctor told him he needed to walk more. 18 months later, he hadn't fallen once. That's not a coincidence. The research on walking and mental health is remarkably consistent. Walking reduces depression, reduces anxiety, improves mood, and lowers cortisol, the primary stress hormone. These are not small effects. The mechanisms are partly chemical. Walking triggers the release of endorphins and endocannabinoids, natural compounds that improve mood. But the effect that matters most for people over 60 may be something else entirely. Walking increases levels of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which functions essentially as fertilizer for brain cells. It helps existing neurons survive. It stimulates the growth of new ones. And higher BDNF levels are linked to better memory, sharper reasoning, and a meaningfully lower risk of dementia. The Framingham Heart Study, tracking populations across decades, documented that physically active people show significantly lower rates of dementia long-term, and the medical community considers this one of the most accessible interventions available for protecting cognitive function after 60. So what's actually going on here? It's not just that active people happen to be healthier. The movement itself changes the brain, and that starts happening with something as simple as a daily walk. When you add up all of those effects, a healthier heart, lower blood pressure, better glucose control, protected kidneys and liver, preserved joints, more muscle, a sharper mind. The overall impact on how long you live is substantial. A study published in JAMA Internal Medicine followed nearly 5,000 older women and found that those walking approximately 7,500 steps per day had significantly lower all-cause mortality rates compared to those walking around 2,500 steps. All-cause mortality, meaning every cause of death combined. And here's the part that worries doctors most about how this information gets communicated. People hear 10,000 steps and think it's impossible, so they don't start. But the benefits appeared to level off around 7,500 steps. You don't need 15,000 or 20,000 steps a day. 7,500 is achievable for most people, and it's already enough to move the needle on how long you live. Here's the one detail most walking videos skip completely, and it changes the results. It's not just how many steps you take. It's when. Walking after meals, even just 10 to 15 minutes, has a measurable effect on post-meal blood sugar spikes. Research in diabetes care showed this specifically. Shorter walks after eating outperform longer walks at random times of day for blood glucose control. For people over 60, whose metabolic efficiency tends to decline, that timing can make a real difference in long-term metabolic risk. And the second piece of the hidden habit is pace. For cardiovascular and metabolic benefits, the sweet spot is a pace where talking is easy, but singing would be hard. Slightly breathless. That level of moderate effort is what activates the mechanisms we've covered throughout this video. It doesn't have to be a long walk. It doesn't have to be on a track or in a gym. It has to be consistent. So let's bring it all together. 9 things that change when you walk every day after 60. Your heart gets more efficient. Your blood pressure drops. Your blood sugar becomes easier to regulate. Your kidneys are under less strain. Your liver processes fat more effectively. Your joints stay better nourished and less inflamed. You preserve more muscle mass. Your brain gets sharper and more protected from dementia. And you live longer, documented across multiple long-term studies. All of that from something that costs nothing. The most important step is the first one. Find out how many steps you're taking today. Your phone probably already tracks this. Use that number as your baseline. If you're under 3,000 steps a day, the only goal for the next 2 weeks is adding one 10 to 15-minute walk. That's it. Build the habit before you build the volume. After 2 weeks, add a second walk, ideally after a meal. The target for most people is around 7,500 steps a day, not 20,000. 7,500. If this video was useful, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below with a question or your own experience, and hit like. It genuinely helps.